What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite for an ultimate guide on how to unlock Genesis and every mastery camo within the Black Ops 7 campaign. Definitely stay tuned. Now, I made a video just like this during the launch of BO7, going over every single camo challenge for multiplayer and zombies. As I said in that video, though, the challenges are pretty self-explanatory, but still, I went ahead and went through every single unique special camo challenge and the mastery objectives for those out there that wanted to know what they were getting themselves into. But like I said in that video, right, I don't really have to show you how to get headshots or double kills or how to use certain ammo mods, how to get rapid zombie kills. Those challenges are very straightforward to understand, whereas in campaign, there's some very specific ones that a lot of people are confused about, which we're going to be walking through here today. But don't forget, over in Black Ops 7, we do have the carry forward feature allowing you to track all of your camo challenges. We also have a full camo hub. Depending on what mode that you're in, it'll display all of your progress with every weapon category for that game mode. So it's a great way to go ahead and keep track of exactly what you're doing without clicking on every individual weapon to see where you're at. And also another quality of life feature from BO6 is the tracked and near complete tab. So you could probably go ahead and prioritize exactly what weapons you want to get done next based on how close you are to finishing each one. Now, the funny thing about the campaign camos is that you're not actually going to be grinding them inside of the 11 linear missions of the campaign. You're going to be grinding these while playing Endgame. Now, if you do choose to replay these missions, or if you've never beaten them before and somebody helped you unlock Endgame, then yes, when you go into these missions, depending on what weapon you're using, you could actually grind your headshots and your special challenges while playing these levels. But obviously, as far as optimizing your grind and getting these camos done in an efficient amount of time, you're going to want to get everything done over in Endgame. So to also make things clear with your loadout, for those that are unfamiliar, you can only choose one weapon to spawn in with. It could be any weapon in the game, and if you unlock a higher rarity for that weapon while playing endgame, it'll warn you before you swap to a different weapon, which will discard the higher rarity one that you had. This weapon right here is one that you find in the environment that will kind of be your acquisition weapon that you can bring with you from game to game, even when you switch to a different operator slot. Notice how your loadout doesn't actually change when you do switch operators. All that will change are your abilities that are of course exclusive to that character. And then when it comes to melee, you can just pick whichever one you want. There aren't many in the game right now, but as far as which weapon you're going to be grinding with, if let's say you spawn in with one that you want to get camos for, you could always find another weapon in the environment. But for the sake of this video, we're going to focus on just one weapon here, focusing on the MXR because I'm working towards the Afterlife camo, a universal unlock, which requires weapon prestige master. Luckily, the endgame camo grind does put a pretty big dent into your player level and your weapon prestige grind. I'd also recommend stacking all that with a double XP and double weapon XP token. You're going to be flying through levels and combat ratings while working towards these camos, of course. So when it comes to the military challenges, excluding launchers and melees, every weapon class, or almost every class, will require 250 critical kills. Those are headshots, which when you compare it to multiplayer and zombies, it's a little bit different. MP requires 100, whereas zombies requires 1,000. They made new exceptions with Black Ops 7, where shotguns now require 250 point blank kills instead of what would have been headshots, whereas snipers also don't require headshots, you just need one-shot kills. But thankfully, there's a very fast strategy for getting all these critical kills done when you head over to the Tier 3 zone by the resort. This is right by Skyline. What you want to do near these hills is farm up a bunch of the zombies and run a real big train, and you can get a pretty good group of, like, I want to say 20 or 25 zombies at once, and you can just start going ham with those headshots. Of course, you could expect some of the people on your team, if you're playing with randoms, or just other folks in the lobby, to probably come over here as well, because I did cover this in a recent combat rating video for Endgame. This is also a really efficient strategy for getting a very high combat rating in just a couple of minutes. So this is a multi-use strategy, to be honest with you guys, not just a strat for weapon leveling or camo grinding, but also to get your combat rating up before going into the Tier 4 boss fight. Now, you can also spread out a little bit. You can go past the hills a little, and again, you're still in Tier 3, and you'll see a ton of zombies and even a Disciple just sitting over here in the area, which you can, of course, keep farming up. But just to remind you, the zombies will keep spawning. If they're just not there for some reason, make sure you maybe grapple away for a bit, wait a good 45 seconds, then come back, and the fear should start spawning back in. Now, something I'd also like to mention is that it's obviously recommended you upgrade your weapon's rarity. The thing is, you absolutely don't have to. You can still get the headshots and do the other challenges just fine, but it allows your weapon to do a lot more damage, especially if you're a slightly lower combat rating and you still want to grind these camos. What I'd recommend is, of course, getting a decently high combat rating so that you can go around from zone to zone around the map, not really worried about your damage output. Well, I'd also recommend breaching a command center to upgrade your weapon's rarity at one of those free stations. Now, something I'm not going to do in this video that I did for my multiplayer and zombie ultimate guide is talk about the special challenges, because for the most part, they're just about the same for almost every single weapon here inside of campaign. There's nothing really unique about these challenges to where I have to show you anything in game, but again, the challenges for the special category typically consist of having up to 8 attachments, going ahead and having rarity or higher, getting rapid kills, kills shortly after sprinting, killing just humans, not zombies, getting kills shortly after sliding, or using extended mag. Again, those challenges are pretty self-explanatory, so we're not going to waste any time talking about those. But there's one special challenge in particular I did want to highlight, which requires you to kill either dogs or drones. I'd highly recommend going for the drones on this one, since if you actually look for the surveillance activity around the map and you go to it, you'll see a medium-sized drone, which you can shoot at least once, to where it then triggers that drone to spawn a bunch of little ones. If you don't end up destroying that big drone, you can just keep farming the smaller ones that keep flying towards you until you eventually destroy the big one and move on to another surveillance activity. But only having to get like 25 or 30 drones really won't take you that long. Of course, you could just passively explore the map and come across drones randomly in some of the activities or zones, but this is a way to directly go ahead and spawn in as many drones as possible to get that special camo unlocked as quick as you can. Now, I tried doing one of these surveillance contracts in a higher tier zone to see if more drones would actually spawn in to where I can get this done faster. Didn't really notice much of a difference other than the fact that there's going to be a bunch of guild operatives kind of defending this area, which can actually cause you some trouble while you're trying to just focus on the drone specifically. Now, there's one more special challenge I do want to address, which has people a little confused, requiring 50 guild kills for that camo. Now, you're not going to see this challenge on every weapon for the special category, but when you do see it, you want to head over to Loadouts, towards the center of the map, where you will see a huge abundance of guild robots. Yes, the guild kills you need have to be on those safeguard-looking bots, which will spawn pretty frequently here in Loadouts. If they're ever not present, just fly away and come back in, and there should be a good amount of them every good, I want to say 15 or 20 seconds. You should have no issue taking these down, especially with an upgraded weapon, while you'll also see some other regular guild soldiers in the area too. You could either ignore them or take them out as well if you're also grinding headshots for a different weapon, then swap back to the one you need the guild kills for. But now moving on to Molten Gold. Again, this is the first mastery camo as a part of the campaign grind. This is what you want to do. You have to go ahead and get 20 special kills, and there's several different special enemy types within Endgame. Luckily, there's one type that is pretty easy to kill, and you can actually find infinite spawns for over by the Coliseum. You're going to be looking for the Raiders. They're really not too tanky. They have a little bit more armor and I think some better weaponry than some of the regular guild operatives here, but what you can keep doing is flying over to this area near Coliseum, finding all those raiders, taking everything else down, and then grappling away for a good 45 seconds, work your way back, and they'll be spawned right back in. There'll also be a VTOL warship that will occasionally come by and drop off more guild soldiers, so that's a way you can quickly go ahead and farm up all of those raiders that do count as special kills, and you really don't need that many for each individual weapon. The thing is, some folks are doing it the long way, where they were going ahead and doing some of the guild container assignments, dog escorts, and other objectives around the map, which do spawn in at least one special enemy. Still, if you want to go ahead and do that, that's fine, because you're going to get some power for doing contracts, which will go towards your combat rating, but if you're just focused on the weapon camo, I'd highly recommend sticking around the Coliseum. I do believe mimics and maulers also count as special enemies on this map, but instead of having to worry about any of the zombies or tankier enemies, I would just focus on the raiders. But next up we have Moonstone. This is going to require you to get 100 kills in either a tier 3 or a tier 4 zone. I'm going to connect this back to what I said earlier in the video, which is that I'd highly recommend having orange legendary rarity on your weapon, and also having a pretty high combat rating to get as many damage boosts as you can, so that you can fly your way through any of the zones with ease and be able to hold your own weight. Being in a tier 3 or 4 zone really isn't that difficult if you're playing with a squad that knows what they're doing, but if you're on solo, this is where you have to make sure you are absolutely prepared. If you have fill squad off, make sure you have a self-revive, but if it's on, don't worry if, let's say, you get wiped out. So long as your squad mates do stay alive, you'll be spawning back in within 30 seconds, and you wouldn't have lost anything. But upgrading the weapon that you're camo grinding for is going to be real important to take out a lot of those heavier enemies in these areas. But again, this could be farming a bunch of zombies, which is by far the easiest strat, or going ahead and killing even the guild operatives. But last and certainly not least, ladies and gentlemen, to get Chroma Flux over at Endgame, you got to get 10 elite kills. This is incredibly easy to do because thankfully, if you head over near Lowtown and the center of the map, you'll actually see elites pinged on the map for you. You don't have to start any contract or any activity to find elites. They'll just be marked on your minimap, as you can see there in yellow. Head into those buildings where they're located. Watch out for other nearby enemies that could be defending them. And once you walk up to that elite, it could be just an armored fella, it could be a sniper, or even somebody in a rhino suit. I had an unupgraded weapon and managed to take out these elites pretty easily, but again, that's also due in part because I have a pretty high combat rating, which gives me a very good damage boost. Would highly recommend being very prepared for going into tier 3 or 4 to find a lot of these elites. This isn't the only area where you could find elites, but is the most common location where they spawn the most frequently. Now, 10 kills really isn't that bad, but if you're playing with the squad, it could also be helpful if they're nearby, helping pick off some of the other enemies, or putting a little bit of damage into that elite before you could finish them off with your weapon. And the great news, folks, is that you only have to get Chroma Flux on 30 weapons inside of BO7 Endgame to unlock the final mastery, aka Genesis. You won't have to do any individual camo challenges on every weapon to get Genesis. Now, as I said before, as new strategies do get discovered for how to unlock all these mastery camos across every game mode, I'll be sure to follow up with even more shorts. However, this was the first set of mastery camos we've ever gotten in a Call of Duty campaign. But ladies and gentlemen, that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on every endgame mastery camo and all the challenges that you can go ahead and grind right now in the open world Avalon space? As a reminder, I have even more endgame videos in the works, but if you want to check out one going over the 12 free operator skin rewards by beating the tier 4 boss, or a video going over how to get a high combat rating pretty quickly, those videos are going to be linked down below. With that being said, I really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.